Just when you thought you had the NFL all figured out, the refrigerator runs, blocks, and now catches touchdown passes. William Perry is now a living legend. The Raiders look like the team to beat in the AFC West, and the Seahawks were struggling. Right? Wrong. Seattle manhandled Los Angeles. In the preseason, the Jets were supposed to be a joke. Wait just a minute. Look who's having the last laugh. We are in the Big Apple, New York City, as Inside the NFL focuses on the surprising leader of the AFC East. The New York Jets are flying high.
And now, from the banks of the Hudson River overlooking the Manhattan skyline, here are your hosts, Len Dawson and Barry Tompkins.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second half of the 1985 regular season. Barry Tompkins is sitting in for Nick Buoniconti once again this week. I'm sure you're all aware of the fact that Nick's son Mark was seriously injured playing football. Nick is in Miami with his son at the present time, and I'm sure you'll join us in sending our prayers to Mark and the Buoniconti family. We are right here on the patio of the Shanghai Red restaurant in Weehawken, New Jersey. And you say, where is Weehawken, New Jersey? Behind us, the Hudson River. Further east, the magnificent skyline of the Big Apple, New York City. And we are here to focus on the surprising New York Jets. Our NFL cover story is titled The Karate Kid. That's the name we've given to All-Pro defensive end Mark Gastineau. Our NFL storybook is called Weeb's Wild Men. We're going to take a look at some of the unusual men who played for head coach Weeb Ewbank and the New York Jets. And some of the Jets players, both past and present, will be joining us on the show this afternoon. Barry, who would have thought at the beginning of the year, first of all, we'd be on the patio of Shanghai Red's restaurant, but the fact that the New York Jets would be in the position that they are right now.
I don't think anybody would have thought either one of those things, actually. Jets are doing it with defense, and I really think that is the key for them. New 3-4 defense, there was some question about it before the season started. Well, it's worked virtually to perfection, and they got to thank Bud Carson for that. On the other side of the football, Freeman McNeil playing like an all-pro. He's had numerous 100-yard games, and I really like Ken O'Brien. I always did like him, but I can really see him maturing with every game and just getting to be a better and better quarterback. And then, of course, I have to harken back to that Monday night game against Miami about 4 weeks ago. They won the game 23-7, but it just seemed to give them such a psychological lift.
I really agree with you. They not only defeated the Miami Dolphins, I think they beat up on them. And I think they set the tempo for the type of team that they want to be known for. They want to be known for an aggressive and an intimidating type of team, particularly on defense.
I think if you ask any coach in the National Football League, they're going to tell you that you win with defense. It's defense that's going to get you to the Super Bowl. And the teams that don't play very good defense, simply said, don't get to the Super Bowl. Exhibit A has got to be the San Diego Chargers. You know, this is the first time in 9 years of doing this show that we have shown you a picture of a defensive player for the Chargers. Well, Billy Ray Smith led the Chargers in tackles. It was a big victory for them over Denver. They did it with defense, and as usual, the offense worked too, and the combination gave the Chargers a big win.
The San Diego Chargers had won just once in their last 13 games against a division rival. And the Denver Broncos saw no reason why they couldn't make that only once in the last 14 games and get a lock on first place in the AFC West. But it was the Broncos' own mistakes that prevented them from making that move to the top. Wilhite's fumble short-circuited a Denver drive, and San Diego capitalized in full when quarterback Dan Fouts teamed with Wes Chandler, number 89, for 2 touchdowns. final Charger touchdown in San Diego's 30-10 win came when ex-USFL running back Gary Anderson took a pitch from Buford McGee and became the first pro player to rush for over 100 yards in a game in the same year in 2 different leagues. It is unlikely that Gary Anderson will have the staying power of Minnesota kicker Jan Stenerud, who has been in the same league for 19 years. And it was he who provided the difference in the Vikings' matchup against the Detroit Lions. The Vikings doubled the Lions' offensive yardage total, yet could manage but 1 touchdown. Tight end Steve Jordan's tumbling act brought the ball to the Detroit 1-yard line. And running back Ted Brown did the rest when he spun off his wall of blockers for 6 points. But the bulk of the Viking running game was provided by the diminutive Darren Nelson, number 20, who ran for a career-high 122 yards. Lions rookie coach Darrell Rogers had beaten Don Shula, Tom Landry, and Bill Walsh, but could not overcome the resourcefulness of Bud Grant's Vikings. As time ran out, Jan Stenerud's 28-yard field goal earned Minnesota a 16-13 win and put the Vikings 4 games behind the Chicago Bears, the same team that Packer quarterback Jim Zorn faced in his first start in over 2 years. While this game hardly bore the significance of the upcoming Geneva Summit Conference, the Bears' defense did their best to limit arms production in the Green Bay backfield. Chicago defensive tackle Dan Hampton, number 99, was the primary aggressor when he dumped Zorn for a pair of drive-stopping sacks, while line mate Steve McMichael, number 76, nailed Zorn in his own end zone for a safety. But heavyweights like Hampton and McMichael are dwarfed by the newest member of the Bears offense, halfback and a half, William Perry, number 72. The refrigerator sent a chill through the Packers secondary when he became the widest receiver in the NFL. With 25 seconds left in the first half, Perry went in motion right. Then he glided into the end zone, then coasted under a Jim McMahon pass for his 2nd touchdown of the season. Perry's catch left him just 691 catches behind Charlie Joyner in the race for the NFL's all-time receiving record. The touchdown put the Bears on top 7-3, a lead that lasted 10 minutes before Jim Zorn spotted running back Jesse Clark with a 55-yard scoring pass. In what was the Bears' toughest game to date, the Packers took a 10-9 lead into the final period until Walter Payton scored the game winner from 27 yards out. With so much attention being lavished on William Perry, it is easy to forget that Walter Payton remains the Bears' vital constant. And on Sunday, number 34 responded with his best day of 1985 when he ran up 192 yards in the Bears' 16-10 win, as the Bears remain the league's only undefeated team.
The Chicago victory wasn't real pretty, but a great team finds a way to win. By that, I mean, if you truly believe you're a better team than the one you're playing, you don't worry about making mistakes and losing. You find a way to win out there, even if it's ugly. And speaking of ugly, the refrigerator started out looking ugly, but today in Chicago, he is beautiful.
I'll tell you, he is the hottest thing in Chicago right now. I was in Chicago over the weekend, and he's all over the sports section. He's all over the front page. He could probably be elected mayor were that election to be held today. And really what Mike Ditka has done, too, is create a whole new offensive philosophy. I think it's fair to say that he's giving defenses a whole nother element to think about down on the goal line. I mean, he's big.
How big is he?
He's so big he stands on a street corner by himself. People come over and say, break it up.
Well, that's funny, but how funny do you think it would be if you are an 180-pound defensive back and the refrigerator goes in motion? Two things he can do: go out for a pass or put that 180-pound defensive back in the nickel seats. That back hopes that he's going out for a pass. Another team known for power football has been the Washington Redskins. And last Sunday against Atlanta, Keith Griffin and this man, George Rogers, rushed for almost 300 yards without the services of their main man, John Riggins.
Last Sunday in Atlanta, the Falcons worked on firming up those flabby muscles. But against the Washington Redskins, all they could muster was an exercise in futility. With a perfectly timed block by Don Warren, number 85, George Rogers was on his way to making people forget that injured John Riggins was out of the lineup. The NFL's top rushing offense ground out 307 yards, their highest total in 34 years. Even Joe Theismann contributed to the historic cause with an 11-yard sprint. Theismann entered the game as the NFC's lowest-ranked passer, but displayed rejuvenated form with a 34-yard touchdown pass to Art Monk, number 81. But Washington adhered to the adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and continued to utilize the handoff, their most devastating weapon of the day. Keith Griffin, number 35, shattered the Falcons for 164 yards, a greater output than his 8 previous games combined, as Washington demolished Atlanta 44-10. The Redskins are quietly chugging along at 5-4, only one game out of first in the NFC East, while the Rams are trying to rebound from last week's loss to San Francisco, which brought their undefeated season to a screeching halt. Los Angeles got back on the winning track by derailing the hapless New Orleans Saints with 9 quarterback sacks. Thus far this season, the Ram defense has carried more of the load than Amtrak. But the LA offense finally hit pay dirt as Eric Dickerson recorded his first 100-yard game in 6 weeks. Dieter Brock showed the form that was expected of him when he was imported from Canada, as he tossed 2 touchdown passes, including a 29-yarder to Tony Hunter, number 87. Los Angeles had a cakewalk with a 28-10 victory, just as in Houston, quarterback Warren Moon effortlessly engineered an offensive attack, which certainly didn't look like the lowest ranked in the NFL. Number 40, Butch Woolfolk, ran for over 100 yards and rallied the Oilers to a 20-6 third-quarter advantage. Kansas City appeared listless on defense, and their offense exhibited a little snap as well. When quarterback Bill Kenny got a handle on the ball, he was quite effective, throwing for 2 touchdowns. But it was too late as the Oilers squeaked out their 3rd straight win, 23-20, leaving a logjam in the AFC Central, that bastion of parity, where each team is tied for first or last at 4-5. Meanwhile, at the Hoosier Dome, the Indianapolis Colts experimented with Jane Fonda's new workout, but what resulted was a work over at the hands of the New York Jets. Quarterback Ken O'Brien made the Colts feel the burn as he passed for a career-high 3 touchdowns. Wesley Walker, number 85, gave the defensive backs a thorough aerobic test, while number 99, Mark Gastineau, recovered from a broken thumb, limbered up the Colt offensive line with some moves not even Jack LaLanne could master. New York York tallied 6 sacks, but it was the #1 rushing offense in the AFC which elevated this game from workout to blowout. Despite a battered back, Freeman McNeil, the NFL's leading rusher, totaled 149 yards and set a good example for Dennis Blygen, number 23, who notched his first pro score. This 28-yard run iced the Jets' 35-17 victory, their first season sweep over the Colts in 4 years. With the best record in the conference at 7-2, the Jets look quite fit and are primed for a fight with the Miami Dolphins this Sunday in the Orange Bowl.
Well, after that great 1981 season, it wasn't so good for Joe Klecko in 1982. A serious knee injury actually threatened his career. There were those who were writing Joe Klecko off. Well, that was 3 years ago. Right now, he might be in the midst of his finest season as a New York Jet. And it's a pleasure to welcome Joe Klecko to Inside the NFL. Joe, we've been talking about the 3-4 defense. There was a lot of grumbling about it when it was first put in by Bud Carson. So let me ask you what the attitude was before it was put in and what it is now.
Well, we've been so used to the 4-3. That's all we ever played in New York. And, you know, everybody was skeptical about it, especially me being in a noseman position, because you're used like a pinball in there usually. You know, you get bounced around, everybody takes a shot at you. But after talking to Bud and sitting down and him explaining exactly how aggressive the defense was going to be and, you know, how we were going to play the position, you know, it became intriguing.
Let's talk about the nose tackle position. Actually, I don't think I can call you a nose tackle because you do not line up over the center's nose. You're at a different angle. Explain what the angle is and why you do it that way.
Well, they put me in a gap to either side of the center, cocked right at the center. Reason being, you know, I play off the center's block, whether he be going away from me or coming right at me. And it makes it a little tough on him to get to the linebackers behind me if they're scooping it. That's bringing a guard down and letting the center release for the play side to get the linebacker. And it makes it tough with me in that position. It also makes it hard with me rushing the passer. Again, if you're right on the center, it's very easy for him to reach up and latch onto you more or less, and a guard doesn't get a free shot at you. You know, it gives little problems, and that's why Bud likes it so much.
Joe, Lenny and I were talking earlier about that game a few weeks ago against Miami, and it just seems that that was the game that really turned the corner for this team. You beat up on them, and all of a sudden it seems there's a new attitude with this football team.
Well, we always knew we could do it. You know, I tell you, one of the blessings I thought we had was losing to the Raiders the very first game. I think if we would have get in there and beat the Raiders in the Coliseum, that would have gave a little bit of a big-headedness to the guys. We have a young football team, more or less. We have a lot of veterans, but everybody plays, and I think that was one of the best things that happened to us. And then when we got to the Miami game, especially being Monday Night Football, us having some good ones behind us, nobody said we really played anybody that tough until we come to Miami. We were up for the game, and again, you know, on defense, speaking from a defensive standpoint, we knew what we had to do to Miami. We had to get on Marino. You know, you give Dan Marino time, I don't care who you are. Dan Marino's going to complete passes, and we got on top of him. And the offense, you know, they played well also. But the whole team in general had this attitude about we couldn't be beat, and it worked out fine for us.
Joe, if you were to describe your teammate, Mark Gastineau, in one word, what would that word be?
I'd have to say intense. Intense.
All right.
Mark's a real intense guy. On the field, you know, he's wrapped up in his own world out there. You know, he enjoys what he does. But when he gets on a football player, he is a football player all the way.
Joe, thank you very much for taking time with us, and good luck the rest of the season.
Thanks, Len. Thanks, Brian.
Well, as you heard Mr. Klecko say, Mark Gastineau is a very intense person. Now, while Joe may be driving a truck on his day off, let's sit back and relax and see what Mr. Gastineau does when he has a day of rest.
Mark Gastineau is a specialist, a man with a job that is basically unidimensional. Every Sunday afternoon, it's his chore to knock the living stuffing out of anyone capable of hurling a pointed ball. When he isn't on the job, he's a man of simple pursuits. Mark likes to don the shades, get together with friends, put the four-wheel drive in gear, and head off for some meaningful diversion.
Rich!
We got a lot to do today. Let's go to work.
Hey,
How you doing?
oh, pal. Ready?
What's up for today?
Weight training, martial arts, flexibility, endurance, stamina. All right. Okay, so here's what I figure we do. We'll cover some pulley work first, okay? Then let's get into some flexibility stuff today.
All right. Let's get
All right.
We've talked about it on numerous occasions. Every football player in the NFL, it seems, is looking for that edge. Even a four-time All-Pro like defensive end Mark Gastineau of the New York Jets. To be proficient at one form of defense, Gastineau is taking to preparing with another form of defense. Self-defense. If you happen to be one of those people who throw the football, this can only come as bad news. In Gastineau's mind, he's quicker, stronger, and meaner than before. The man responsible for all this damage is an 8th-degree black belt karate guru by the name of Richie Barathie. Barathy's expertise has landed him guest spots on the likes of the Johnny Carson Show, where he did nothing less than shatter 13 granite boards in one swat. It not only impressed the masses, it impressed the NFL's two-time sack leader as well. Barathie and Gastineau have now teamed for the past 4 off-seasons on the weights, on the mat, in the mind. Dedication is the operative word here.
You couldn't ask for any better than Mark Gastineau because the guy gives you, I would say 100%. I would like to say 200%, but you know, it's just figures we're dealing with here. But he puts out everything. I mean, he never once says to me, Richie, I'm tired. He never once says, I can't do it.
It's not something that you just play around with. It's something that you take serious, because if you are going to work with a martial artist who's put in all that time, you just have respect for him enough that you're not going to spend a lot of your time just messing around.
Lest you think that all of this is indiscriminate mayhem, Barathie is quick to point out that with Gastineau, it's all systematic. Certain exercises designed to sharpen mind and body in certain areas. Caution is a byword.
You don't want to get him into the freestyling situation because then it's too subconscious. This way, it's prearranged movement, but it helps his timing, it helps his awareness, and it doesn't let him just run free. It's controlled movement. If I let him run free, then I'm afraid he's going to kick somebody on the field.
Sometimes you worry about your subconscious reacting with you, not even you realizing that it's happening, and you know, your kicks or roundhouses or something like that. I know that you would either get penalized or thrown out of a game. And, you know, I never want that to happen to me. I don't want to ever kick anybody or hurt anybody.
Karate in its truest form is an exacting science, as much mental as it is physical. Unlike football, the X's and O's don't move. What Barathie is doing with Gastineau is trying to bring a cohesiveness to 2 diverse types of violence. If he succeeds, the guys who throw the pointed ball are much the worse for wear.
We're taking a person that's normal and making them kind of like super normal. In other words, we're enhancing the relationship between the mind and the muscles.
All those things help. You know, they help you with your quickness. They help you with your reactions. When you see something out on the field and you see something coming at you, you can react because your subconscious portion has been tuned in and trained to react. And, you know, that is the benefit that I get out of the martial arts.
If a defensive lineman hurries the quarterback or forces him to throw before the pattern develops, that's almost as good as a sack. And the Karate Kid or Mark Gastineau is the top of that list. And a gentleman who takes advantage of that is our guest, Lance Mehl. Lance, 3-4, 4-3. You used to play a 4-3, now you're playing the 3-4. How has that affected you as a linebacker?
Well, first off, they moved me from the outside to the inside, so I get hit a lot more nowadays. The defenses happen much quicker in there, and I have to read the guard much quicker, whereas before, if the play went away, I'd have a little break.
Is it a tougher position to play than the outside?
I think so. I think mainly because you got to be concentrating the whole game. You can't take any plays off. You know, before I'd get a break now and then, but now, not anymore.
Lance, let's talk a little bit about Joe Walton, the coach. I look at him on the sidelines, and he looks like a guy who might have driven the team bus to the game. Can you characterize Joe Walton for us?
He's a hard-working guy. You know, he spends a lot of time looking at films, and he gets down there on the field with us and coaches us, and just a hard-working guy.
You are playing with some different people as a linebacking core. It used to be a 4-3, and you had Stan Blinka and Buttle out there along with yourself. Now you have some new people out there. Has this changed your role any?
Yeah, they kind of look at me as sort of the leader type, you know, I guess. I had the most experience, so they asked me some questions, and hopefully I can help them out with some coverages or a little bit of hints of how to do certain things. But we have a good linebacker coach in Dan Radakovich, and he helps us out.
How tough is this defense of yours?
I think we're pretty good, and we're getting better. We don't know everything yet. We have a lot to learn.
Whatever you're doing so far is working. Lance, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Well, the New York Football Jets are not the only successful team here in this city. The football Giants are doing pretty well, too. Just last Tuesday, Eric Schubert was teaching high school here in New Jersey. On Sunday, he became the first kicker in the history of the NFL to kick 5 successful field goals in his first NFL game.
It is said that the amount of blood spilled in the pivotal month of November is directly related to the amount of playoff champagne sipped in January. In the Meadowlands, the winless Buccaneers and playoff aspiring Giants waged precisely such a pad-popping battle. For the 7th time in 3 weeks, the Steve DeBerg to Jimmy Giles connection yielded a touchdown as the Bucs took a 10-3 lead. When Tampa Bay and the Giants square off, games are tighter than Jack Benny, and this November war was no different. Tampa Bay usually guards its end zone against the Giants as tenaciously as Benny used to guard his wallet. And while Rob Carpenter managed to slip through them, it was ruled that Phil Simms was in the grasp, and Carpenter's determined effort was negated. It finally took a runner the size of one of Jack's tips to tie the game for New York. Little Joe Morris, who wound up with a career-high 132 yards. But the headliner in New York on Sunday was a substitute teacher and part-time high school coach named Eric Schubert, who nailed 5 field goals as Haji Sheik's emergency replacement in his first pro game ever. True to form, however, the Bucs kept it close. DeBerg and Giles clicked once more, but with less than a minute left, Terry Kennard snuffed out all hopes for Tampa's first win of the season. Kennard's theft preserved a hard-fought, important November victory for the Giants, 22-20, who by virtue of Dallas's Monday night loss now own a share of the division lead. A win for the Eagles would keep them only a game back in the NFC East. But against the 49ers, that victory and the ball seemed hard to grasp. Ron Jaworski was the NFC's Player of the Month in October, but he began November by fumbling once and throwing 3 interceptions after having thrown 112 passes without error. Against the world champions, the Eagles were penalized 10 times, dropped 6 passes, were sacked 4 times, and rushed for only 61 minuscule yards as the Niners rolled behind backup Matt Cavanaugh. Jerry Rice's 14-yard touchdown catch helped San Francisco to a 21-3 third-quarter lead. But a Jaws-to-Mike Quick bomb got the Eagles to within 8 in the third quarter. Quick's stride was beautiful to watch, but it was another ugly turnover that made Eagle fans want to forget this game. The defending NFC champs won 24-13, and the defending AFC champion Dolphins were determined to do the same in blustery Foxborough. Last year's Dolphin highlight film was crammed with wonderful spirals, Dan Marino smiles, mismatches, and circus catches. But so far this year, it has been a season of scratching and gouging for every yard, as Miami is living from week to week hoping to get a hold on their winning identity, trying to cling to something positive, trying to win. Against Against the Patriots, the Dolphins started out well as rookie Ron Davenport's driving legs helped put them up 10-0. Without question, defense wins titles. And without question, it has been Miami's defense that has been their biggest question mark. But number 49, William Judson and company, harnessed New England, allowing only a field goal through 3 quarters. The winner would take sole possession of second place in the division. And when Irving Pryor's long touchdown catch was called back, it appeared that the Dolphins were living a charmed life. Miami dominated 3 quarters, but the Patriots, behind Steve Grogan's pinpoint passing, dominated the 4th and most decisive 15 minutes. It is said that great teams aren't great all the time. They're just great when they have to be. And on this chilly near-winter gray afternoon, the New England Patriots, behind workhorse Craig James, number 32, played the final quarter like the great team they hoped to be. It is often true that many times playoff teams can look back at one play that proved to be the real key to their season. And James Carey set up such a pivotal play. On a 4th and 1 from the Dolphin 28, Miami geared up their short yardage defense, and the rest was history. A Grogan to Tutupu to Grogan to Greg Hawthorne bit of wizardry did more than cut the Dolphin lead to 3. It effected won them the game. The magic flea flicker took the wind out of Miami's sails, and New England's ground attack ground up the visitors once more on an 80-yard drive that Miami was unable to stop. Steve Grogan finished off Miami 17-13 for a 4th consecutive Patriot win. For New England, they're right in the thick of the playoff hunt. For the Dolphins, if it is true that victories in November decide playoff berths in January, then they had better start popping some people on defense if they wish to pop some champagne in 1985.
So the Patriots do a dance on the Miami Dolphins, and that was a very big win for New England. Speaking of big wins, they always seem to play very well against the team we've been talking about today, the New York Jets. They have beaten the Jets 4 out of 5 times. Well, joining us now is Jets tight end Mickey Shuler. And Mickey, we've been talking about the Patriots. They're kind of in a strange position right now. While everybody seems to be talking about you and about the Miami Dolphins, the Patriots are sneaking up on people and knocking their heads off.
Well, the Patriots are a tough team. They're loaded with a lot of talent. They got players that can play. I think the key to them is to just stay with them and not let them get ahead, because I think they're really good front runners, and you got to stay on top of them.
Tough division in general, though.
The Miami Dolphins are always tough with Coach Shuler and the Dolphins. They play as good as anybody and consistent. They play week in and week out. We got to play them this week, and it's going to be a tough game for us. And if we can continue to win, we can keep New England chasing us instead of pulling ahead.
Mickey, let's talk about your quarterback, Ken O'Brien. I don't think most of the country really knows a great deal about him. What type of a quarterback is he, and how has he been progressing?
Well, Kenny's got an awful lot of talent, and I think that's why he was drafted where he was. He's very talented, and it's been a learning process. And each week, he's getting better and better. Last season, he kind of came in and learned a little bit at the end of the season through some tough times. We lost about 7 games at the end of the season, and we were in the same position we were this year. But Kenny's learning each week. He's getting more confidence in himself and his abilities. And the more he does that, the quicker he makes his reads, the easier it is for the receivers to catch the ball and make the second effort and get first downs.
Now all he has to do is learn to throw to the tight end more, right?
Oh, Kenny throws to me a good bit. I think I've made him very comfortable in there, and I think he kind of looks for me when he gets in trouble, and it's somebody he can go to and know that you're going to be there. And that's the kind of rapport you got to have with the quarterback if you want to catch the ball.
Mickey, we talked about the fact that the Monday night game against Miami might have been the turning point for the Jets defense. Obviously, the offense has come around too. You scored 35 points in the first half a week ago, so you really seem to have it together.
Well, the offense is coming along. We didn't have a very good second half. We played a great first half and kind of had a lackadaisical second half. And I think the key for us is to continue to play consistent, keep your head in the game. But offensively, you got to be consistent. You can't make mistakes. You just got to play every down like it's the last down.
Mickey, thank you very much for joining us. Congratulations on a good season. Best of luck the rest of the way. And the Nittany Lions, your college team, they're undefeated. Things are going well for you.
It looks good for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we take a look at the AFC Eastern Division, you see that the New York Jets are on top with a 7-2 record, followed by New England. The team that was in the Super Bowl last year, Miami, they seem to be struggling. But if they were in the AFC Central Division, they'd be leading by a game. Mr. Pete Rozelle wanted parity, and I guess he got it if you call 4 and 5 records and the teams all tied for first or last place. Parity.
You have to give Vince Ferragamo credit. The California-bred quarterback has maintained a sense of humor despite the sorry state of affairs in Buffalo. But last Sunday against Cincinnati, Ferragamo's sunny disposition was sorely tested by both the Bengal defense and his own teammates. On a cold and dreary afternoon, there was a visible reminder that winter arrives in Buffalo 1 month before it reaches the rest of the country. There was one bright spot in the Bills' lineup. That was the reliable play of running back Greg Bell, number 28. Bell's 14-yard touchdown run lifted Buffalo to a 7-0 second quarter advantage. But the Bills hold on to a lead about as often as a Buffalo weatherman predicts a warm day in November. Bengal quarterback Boomer Esiason hit on 2 scoring passes, while Larry Kinnebrew barreled his way for 128 yards and a touchdown, as Cincinnati prevailed 23-17. The loss dropped Buffalo to 1-8, guaranteeing that for the 4th year in a row they will not have a winning record. But you have to give their fans credit. They have maintained a sense of humor. That, along with their party spirits, should help them through another long season in Buffalo. The same storm that was whipping through northwest New York was more intense in Pittsburgh, where the Browns and Steelers battled it out in what was figured to be a defensive struggle. The conditions, like much of the play, were indeed sloppy. But a look at Cleveland's past performance chart shows that they have never won at Three Rivers Stadium. So despite the off track, this was a contest that ran true to form. Number 34, Walter Abercrombie, scored the game's only touchdown. Still, the Browns did have a 9-7 lead until the final seconds, when the jinx that has afflicted them for 16 years, along with a Gary Anderson field goal, lifted Pittsburgh to a 10-9 victory. While Three Rivers Stadium continues to be a chamber of horrors for Cleveland, the Seattle Kingdome has suddenly become a burial ground for the Raiders. Since switching their loyalties from Oakland to Los Angeles in 1982, the Raiders have not won in Seattle. And thanks to an opportunistic Seahawks secondary, that trend carried on. Taylor's 75-yard touchdown return was one of 4 passes picked off by a Seahawk defense that pressured Raider quarterbacks all day long. While the Raider pass pass protection was non-existent, the Seahawk offensive line was giving their quarterback Dave Craig plenty of time to sneak number 28, Kurt Warner, behind the Raider cover. This was a day when the Raiders could do nothing right. Even when they had a receiver covered like a blanket, as Mike Haynes did here on Darryl Turner, they still came away empty-handed. The Seahawks crushed the Raiders 33-3. Although the Kingdome is indoors and well protected from adverse elements, it has turned into a swamp for the Raiders, where they can no longer easily tread.
You don't see the Raiders give a football game away very often. They did it in '68 when Darryl LaMonica's lateral was recovered by linebacker Ralph Baker to preserve a Jets victory. Last week, it was Seattle's turn to accept the Raiders' gifts. Barry, that's what's been missing from Seattle's team this year, that they did so well last year. Turnovers, particularly turnovers for touchdowns.
Yeah, they have not been consistent, especially on the offense. As a matter of fact, this past Sunday, the only statistic they won was the most important one, final score. But what I do think is interesting is that historically, Seattle, even when they were very, very bad and the Raiders were very, very good, always played the then Oakland Raiders very tough. Is that true when you were playing too? Did Kansas City give anybody
You're
else?
from the Bay Area, around Oakland. You're asking me about the Chiefs and the Raiders rivalry. Yeah, it was a terrific rivalry back in the American Football League days. And generally, the team that won that game won the Western Division Championship. And after that, it was the New York Jets waiting in the wings to take you on for the American Football League Championship. Their head coach was a diminutive man who became a coaching giant.
On October 14, 1985, Hall of Fame quarterback Joe Namath was joined by his former coach, Weeb Ewbank, to retire Joe's jersey with the Jets. Ewbank was the only coach ever to win championships in both the AFL and NFL, and was an equally celebrated name to the capacity crowd of Jets fans, although that name has often given people some trouble.
I remember I was at Baltimore for 9 years, and a fine announcer there always called me Ewbank. And I remember one St. Pat's Day, I went over to a Hibernian group, and that particular night they introduced me as McWeeby. So I've been called everything, I think, and especially when the point spread wasn't right, I think that people got on me quite a bit.
When Ewbank coached the Baltimore Colts to 2 championships in the 1950s, he had one characteristic that his players found particularly amusing.
Weeb was completely paranoid, there's no question about it. He was scared to death. He knew that George Halas was filming all his practices, and he'd look around the stadium the whole time. He spent more time looking up in the stands to see if they had anybody up there with binoculars, but he was convinced that George Halas was spying on all of his practices.
In addition, Weeb also worried about the crazy practical jokers that populated the Colt roster.
We always pulled some kind of prank in the locker room, and the great thing when we were playing was throwing buckets of cold water on different guys that were unsuspecting. So we had a guy named Lenny Lyles who was always in the whirlpool, and he got out of the whirlpool one day and he got hit with a bucket of water. He fell out of the whirlpool and hit his ankle against the radiator and cracked his ankle, so he was lost for the rest of the year. So Weeb says any guy that gets caught throwing a bucket of water is going to get fined $1,000. So everybody stopped, but Marchetti says to Tassif, he says, Gaucho, one more bucket of cold water and that's it. He says, when the horse comes around the corner, I'll nod, you hit him with the bucket of water. So Gaucho, he says, oh yeah, Gino, okay. So he's standing there with the bucket of water, and here comes Weeb out of his office, all dressed up to go over and tape his TV show. And as Weeb comes around the corner, Marchetti goes, now Gaucho, and Gaucho throws a bucket of water, and he sees Weeb, and he goes running after the water to put it back into the bucket, and Weeb's soaking wet, and Gaucho's saying, Jesus Christ, Coach, I'm sorry, it'll never happen again. And Weeb says, I'll get you, Gaucho. And next year, he got him. He sent him to the Eagles. He got him. He got rid of Gaucho.
Play action, first play. I'll tell you if it's a pass. I'll tell you if it's a pass. I'll tell you if it's a pass. Pass.
In the psychedelic 60s, Weeb encountered a new breed of ball player while coaching the Jets. The age of Aquarius athletes whose credo was, do your own thing. Weeb got along amazingly well with these free spirits, and one of them, Joe Willie Namath, was important enough for Ewbank to afford him special treatment.
We would fly into a town for an away game, all right, and we would all go get on the chartered buses. Well, Namath would have a big limousine waiting for him. But when you really stop to think about it, which I don't think some of the guys did, it was the fact that Namath was such a celebrity that he couldn't get on the bus with us. We would go down in the lobby of the hotel to have a beer or something like that. And poor Joe couldn't go in there. If he got in there, he'd get mobbed.
Although the Jets players were different from the Colts, Ewbank was still the same in one way.
Weeb was so worried that Al Davis was going to have a spy in the stands that when we would come out to practice, he would chase every cleaning man, every tarp man. He was deathly afraid that Al Davis was going to have somebody there spying on practice.
Weeb Ewbank, a man who made zany players champions and a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
One great thing about being a successful coach is you can retire when you want to, such is the case of Weeb Ewbank. Our next guest is a man that had a lot to do with Weeb's success as a coach and why he lasted so long, the great running back of the New York Jets, Matt Snell. Matt, thank you very much for joining us. Now, we've just seen something on Weeb Ewbank. I can recall when I was playing against you people, getting near the sidelines, all he did was curse at me. But what was he really like?
Well, I don't think he was only cursing at you, Lenny. I think he was mostly trying to get us fired up. But Weeb was a very sincere man. He really believed in what he was doing, and everyone really liked him. He had a tremendous knowledge of the game, and he was able to teach that knowledge. And also, the people that he surrounded himself with were very good at teaching the game.
Matt, I remember back in 1969 going on the air on local television and saying just before the Super Bowl, you could bet your firstborn, your house, the safe deposit box on the Baltimore Colts. The Jets aren't going to win it. I've always wanted to ask a player this. While Joe Namath was telling the press that the Jets are going to win, what was he saying to you guys?
Well, actually, to tell you the truth, Barry, it wasn't Joe that guaranteed the victory. From watching films all during the week, we saw that Baltimore played a lot of zone. And, of course, in the AFL, we always played a lot of zone because we never had 4 good defensive backs. So we felt that if we could keep them playing the zone and not run them out of it and get a running game going, we had a good shot at winning the game. And Pete Lamons is the one that stood up in practice and said it. And Joe went out and told the press about it.
Oh, Joe got all the credit.
Right.
What about the players today compared to the players when you were playing? Are there any differences?
Well, Lenny, I look at it, yes, there is. You got tremendous athletes today. Everything is built on speed. The players are bigger, stronger, faster. They've got tremendous weight programs. Back when I was playing, I think only you guys in Dallas lifted weights all the time. We never lifted weights. We didn't have a weight room. So when you put all those factors together, the players are definitely better today.
Matt, I think everybody's interested in knowing just what Matt Snell's up to now.
Well, Matt Snell is still in New York. I have my own construction company. We do all interior design and renovation, and we stay very busy there.
Matt, thanks very much for being with us.
Very my pleasure.
Matt Snell, formerly of the New York Jets, one of the great players to ever play for that football team. Well, Leo DeRocher said nice guys finish last, but out in St. Louis, there's a nice guy who might not finish last after all. Jim Hannafin took his football team home to play the Dallas Cowboys on Monday, and what do you know? He came up a winner.
On Monday night in St. Louis, Danny White passed the Cowboys to a 10-0 halftime lead. And a good many viewers went to bed convinced that the competitive aspect of the game was over. But in the second half, an aroused Big Red defense allowed White and the Cowboys no more points and turned the contest the Cardinals' way. The Cowboys turned the ball over 3 times, while Neil Lomax and the Cardinals had 0 turnovers and all of the second half's big plays, including this 46-yard touchdown by Pat Tilley, whose premature spike came very close to being an illegal forward pass to nowhere. On the Cardinals' final drive to a clinching touchdown, Stump Mitchell, number 30, accounted for 46 yards in just 2 plays, with a run and then a pass reception. Neil Lomax then passed 3 consecutive times to newly acquired J.T. Smith, number 84, whose 6th catch of the game became the Cardinals' 3rd touchdown. With the 21-10 come-from-behind victory over Dallas, St. Louis ended the dismal 4-game losing streak. And the suddenly revived Cardinals are now just 2 games behind the co-leading Cowboys and Giants in the NFC East.
But look at the race in the NFC's Eastern Division. Couldn't be any closer. Just 2 games separating the top from the bottom. 2 teams at 6-3, 2 teams at 4-5, and 1 right in the middle at 5-4. You have the feeling that schedule, injuries, and maybe just plain luck is going to be the deciding factor in that most close division. Well, you know, every year, everybody talks about the quarterbacks. Last year, you had to talk about Marino, and you had to talk about Montana. They were dominant. But this year, Len, it doesn't seem like there really is any dominant quarterback in the NFL.
Last year, Neil Lomax of the Cardinals, he was a dominating quarterback. He's having his problems this year. I had the opportunity to talk to Neil a couple of weeks ago when the World Series was going on in St. Louis, and I knew he was down because of his problems. I just wanted him to know that I thought he was a terrific quarterback and that all quarterbacks go through tough times. Well, he said, I'll work my way out of this. And I said, well, don't work your way out of it. Relax your way out of it.
And I think he really did just what you said, too, in the second half of Monday night's game. He looked like the Lomax of old. But the story this year is really not so much quarterbacks, but running backs. You know, this past Sunday, 13 NFL running backs rushed for over 100 yards. Previous high was only 10, and you have the feeling that perhaps situation defenses are starting to dictate new offensive strategy. And speaking of strategy, let's get out to Las Vegas right now, where Larry Merchant is in Caesars Palace to talk about a little strategy and have his own comments on the upstart New York Jets.
They say every lineman's dream is to score a touchdown. So, welcome once again to the National Fatball League. Because pass defense has begun to catch up to offense, coaches are being forced to come up with surprises and occasionally innovations to get the ball into the end zone. One of them is fatball. As Mike Ditka of the Bears threatened, he made 300-plus-pound defensive lineman William Perry a quadruple threat last week. Perry, fast becoming the Walter Mitty of fat men, had run and blocked in goal line situations, and on that occasion, he was used as a receiver and caught a touchdown pass. Now reports are surfacing from his old college, Clemson, that he was a passing star in touch football and once kicked a 55-yard field goal in practice. Is there such a thing as a sextuple threat? Less notice was taken of 295-pound Steve Moore of the Patriots. Moore lined up in the backfield on a crucial short yardage play as a decoy. The Patriots then ran a fake run pass for a touchdown. This new game of fatball reminds me of an old college buddy at Oklahoma, a 2-time All-American guard who later played in the NFL. Many years later, he told me, quite seriously, that his major regret in life was that they never let him carry the ball. I don't know where fatball will surface this week, but so far it's turned up only with winners. Let's try to pick some of those against the Caesars Palace line. The Seahawks are 6 over the Saints in New Orleans. This is a big spot on the road, but the Saints can't score, and the Seahawks defense is an offensive force against such teams, the Seahawks. The Redskins are 3 over the Cowboys at home. Contain the Redskin running game, and Joe Theismann has a hard time, the Cowboys. The Raiders are 2 over the Chargers in San Diego. The Raiders defense dominated the explosive Chargers 2 weeks ago. They'll win a closer one this time. The 49ers are 3 over the Broncos in Denver Monday night. The Broncos are a tough homer, but their offense is erratic. The 49ers will win if they don't turn the ball over. Len, the Dolphins are 3.5 over the Jets. If it goes to 4, I like the Jets. But the big question is, will Mark Gastineau or Joe Klecko run the ball?
Larry, thank you very much. It's now time for HBO's Best of the Week. Offensively, it goes to the refrigerator's running mate, Walter Payton. Best of the week, 192 yards rushing, the game-winning touchdown against the Packers.
And defensively, apropos, I think, Len, we've been sitting here talking about the New York Jets all day, and our defensive player of the week, Mark Gastineau. He had 2.5 sacks in that big win, lopsided win over Indianapolis.
It's time now, Barry, to give the results of last week's Super Poll to the Super Bowl question. Do you think artificial turf should be abolished on NFL fields? Well, look at this. We had over 22,000 responses. Overwhelmingly, 87% said yes, get rid of the stuff. Each week we intercept 25 calls, and one of them was Janet Lindell of Arlington, Texas. She wins a subscription to Sports Illustrated and a chance to win a free trip to Super Bowl 20. It's pick time now. Boy, last week I guess we would say beginner's luck for you, Barry.
No. My Ouija board said St. Louis over Dallas, you know?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. The sign of somebody being really talented and good at this is consistency. See if you can do it once again. They had a great week last week. Let's go to Atlanta playing at Philadelphia. I think with the Eagles playing at home, I'm going to pick Philadelphia.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Atlanta is not winning at home, let alone on the road. How about Cleveland and Cincinnati? Once again, because of the home field, I'm going to take Cincinnati. I think Cleveland's on a little bit of a reel right now.
Well, I'll tell you something. That division, all 4 teams are 4 and 5, tied for first or last place, depending on how you look at it. But I'm going to go with the Browns. Dallas at Washington. Now, the Skins are playing much better, and they're playing at home. I'm going to pick Washington.
Yeah, I hate to keep agreeing with you, but I have a theory about Monday night losers playing on the road, and that's what Dallas has to do. I'll take Washington also. How about Detroit and Chicago? Once again, Chicago 9-0. They're just showing no signs of looking back. I got to go with the winner. I'll take the Bears.
How can you figure out Detroit, you know, what they're going to do? They're an up-and-down team. I would go with the Bears also. Green Bay at Minnesota last week. The young fella, Stenrud, he kicks another field goal to win that game. Minnesota has been involved in so many games that went down to the last few seconds. I'm going to go with Minnesota at home.
Yeah, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Jim Zorn starts again for Green Bay. I don't think they can do it, and the Dome's a tough place to play. And how about Buffalo and Houston? Buffalo's playing at home. I'll go for an upset there. I'm going to take Buffalo, mainly because they're playing at home.
I saw Houston play last week against the Kansas City Chiefs, and they are a much improved team. I like Warren Moon. I'm going to go with Houston. Indianapolis at New England. Well, here are the Pats that we've been talking about, as you said, the Jets and Miami, and all of a sudden, New England is right in the thick of things. I'm going with New England.
Well, they played an emotional game last week, and I think because they're playing Indianapolis this time, a little bit easier chore. I agree with you. I'm going to take the Pats. Raiders playing at San Diego. That's a tough choice there. San Diego had a big win, but I'm going to take the Raiders to bounce back. They don't play 2 bad games in a row.
Well, if this is an upset, I'm going to do it. San Diego at home. The Rams and Giants. Here's another one. 2 good football teams. I'm going to go with the Giants at home.
Yeah, I agree with you once again.
Wow.
And the reason is Brock is not going to play for the Rams, and so I think the Giants, because they're playing at home. I agree. How about the Jets in Miami? We've been sitting here talking about the Jets. Well, I don't know if this can be considered an upset either. Miami is playing at home. I'm going to go with the Dolphins.
I'm going to go with the New York Jets. I think, talking to these players, particularly defensively, they think that they can get the job done. New York Jets. Pittsburgh, Kansas City. I've been going with the Chiefs all year, but boy, they're having their problems, and they've got a couple of more injuries. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh.
I'm going to go with the Chiefs. That's going to be my upset of the week, as a matter of fact. I just think they're about due to get off it, and they are playing at home. And how about finally St. Louis and Tampa Bay? Tampa Bay has just not been able to win. I'm going to take Tampa Bay in this, and my reason is St. Louis is coming off an emotional game at home. They got to go play on the road, and they played Monday night, short week. I'll take Tampa.
I think maybe Lomax found himself. St. Louis, Seattle, New Orleans, Seattle.
I have to agree with that, too. I just don't think New Orleans has it, even though they're playing at home. Finally, San Francisco, Denver on Monday. I like the 49ers on national television. That's why I'm going with them.
Me too. That's our show for this week, and to the Buonacani family, our prayers and our thoughts, believe me, are with you at this time.
This has been a presentation of HBO Sports, the network of champions.